Assalamualaikum and good morning to my lecturer and my fellow friends. Today, I will begin by introducing Article 8 of the Federal Constitution, which is the foundation of the principle of equality before the law in Malaysia. Article 8.1 states that all persons are equal before the law and entitled to the equal protection of the law. This means that the law must treat every person fairly, regardless of status, wealth, or position. No one is above the law and everyone is subject to the same legal system. The main purpose of Article 8 is to prevent arbitrary, discriminatory, or unfair treatment by the government or public authorities. It ensures that laws are applied in a just and consistent manner, and it protects individuals from abuse of power. In short, Article 8 promotes fairness, justice, and the rule of law in society. However, it is important to understand that equality does not always mean identical treatment. The law recognizes that different groups may be treated differently if there is a reasonable and lawful justification. For example, minors and adults are treated differently under criminal law, and this is acceptable because minors require protection. Similarly, citizens and non-citizens may be treated differently in matters such as voting rights or public office. These differences do not violate Article 8 as long as they are reasonable and not discriminatory. Finally, the courts play a crucial role in upholding Article 8. The judiciary ensures that laws and government actions do not violate the principle of equality. If a law or decision is unfair, unreasonable, or discriminatory, the courts have the power to declare it unconstitutional. In conclusion, Article 8 is a cornerstone of constitutional law because it safeguards fairness, limits government powers, and ensures equal justice for all.
For this slide, I will explain Article 8 Clause 1 of the Federal Constitution, which focuses on equality and how the courts apply it in their early judicial approach. Article 8 Clause 1 means that all persons are equal before the law, meaning that everyone, whether rich or poor, powerful or ordinary, is treated the same under the law. Second, everyone is entitled to equal protection of the law. It means the law must protect all individuals fairly. No group should be denied the rights or protection that others enjoy. Third, no one is above the law. Even leaders, politicians, or VIP must follow the laws. Article 8 Clause 1 makes it clear that status of power can't give immunity. Fourth, this provision applies equally to everyone regardless of race, religion, gender, or status. Equality is not limited to certain groups, but it applies to everyone in Malaysia regardless of background. Fifth, foundation of fairness in Malaysia. This article is the foundation for fairness in our legal system. Courts often use it to challenge unfair or discriminatory laws. Next is formal equality. It means that all individuals should be treated the same under the law. It doesn't matter who you are. The law must apply to everyone equally without giving special treatment or exceptions. Second, no consideration of personal characteristics like race, gender, or socio-economic status. This principle ignores personal traits like race, gender, or income level. It assumes that fairness comes from treating everyone the same, regardless of their background or life situation. Third, equality is achieved by applying the same rules and standards to everyone. Formal equality believes that justice is best served when the same laws and standards are used for all. Everyone is held to the same expectation, and no one receives extra help or extra burden. Fourth, focuses on uniform treatment regardless of background or circumstances. It's about consistency. Formal equality doesn't adjust for someone's personal challenges or history. It treats everyone as if they start from the same place, which can be both fair and limiting. However, equality does not always mean identical treatment. This is where reasonable classification comes in. The law allows fair distinction as long as they are reasonable and justified. In addition, any classification made must have a valid reason. Thus, the aim is to maintain a balance between equality and practically so the law can function fairly in real situations. For the case, I choose Datuk Haji Harun Idris versus Public Prosecutor 1977. This case clearly shows the application of Article 8 Clause 1. Datuk Haji Harun Idris was the Menteri Besar of Selangor at that time. He was charged with corruption and forgery, and the court found him guilty. He was then sentenced to 6 years in prison. Despite his high status, he was punished under the law. This case reinforced the principle of equality before the law under Article 8 Clause 1. In conclusion, Article 8 Clause 1 ensures equality before the law for all persons. Formal equality applies the same rules to everyone, while reasonable classification allows fair and justified distinction. Lastly, the case of Datuk Haji Harun Idris clearly proved that no one is above the law regardless of their power or position.
Now, I will be discussing Article 8.2 of the Federal Constitution, focusing on gender discrimination in employment and how the Malaysian courts have interpreted this provision over the time. Article 8.2 essentially means that no person should be discriminated against by the law or government on certain protected grounds, namely religion, race, place of birth, and gender, especially in matters of employment and access to public authority. The purpose of this provision is to ensure fairness and to prevent unequal treatment based on personal characteristics that are unrelated to a person's abilities or rights. The protection against gender discrimination under Article 8.2 was further strengthened after the Constitution Amendment in 2001, which included gender as a prohibited ground. However, despite this amendment, the early interpretation of Article 8.2 by Malaysian courts was narrow and highly technical, particularly in cases involving private employers. This can be clearly seen in the case of Beatrice Fernandez with Malaysian Airlines System MAS in 2004. In this case, the airlines require female flight attendants to resign once they become pregnant. Beatrice argued that this policy amounted to gender discrimination. However, the court dismissed her claim on the ground that Article 8.2 only applies to public authorities, and since MAS was a private entity, so that constitutional protection did not apply. This decision was widely critiqued for parodies contractual terms over women's right to equality in employment.
In Article 8, Clause 2 also discuss about religious discrimination and judicial system. Article 8 of the Federal Constitution, which guarantee equality before the law and equal protection to all persons. However, in Malaysia, equality is not absolute, especially when religion is involved. The courts allow different treatments based on reasonable classification and has a rational connection to legitimate objective, such as public order or the protection of Islam. Religion is treated as sensitive classification because Islam is recognized as the religion of the Federation under Article 3. As a result, courts often interpret Article 8 cautiously in religious discrimination cases to avoid social tension. This is further complicated by Malaysia's dual legal system. Civil courts deal with constitutional matters, while Sharia courts govern Islamic law for Muslim. This separation means Muslim and non-Muslim may be subject to different legal rules, creating structural inequality. Consequently, Article 8 claims involving religion are often limited in effectiveness. Furthermore, this focuses on judicial caution in religious matters, particularly through the case of titular Roman Catholic Archbishop versus Menteri Dalam Negeri in year 2013. In this case, the Catholic Church challenged in Home Minister's decision in prohibit the use of the word Allah in the Malay language edition of the Quran. The Federal Court upheld the restriction, holding that the use the word of Allah was not an essential part of Christian faith. The court accepted the government's argument that allowing non-Muslims to use the word could cause confusion among Muslims and threaten public order. Importantly, the court rejected through Article 8 equality claim, even though the restriction applied only to non-Muslims. This shows the judiciary's reluctance to interfere in religions and Islamic matters and how constitutional equality is often limited when balanced against religious sensitivity and public order.
Okay, so for this part, I'll be explaining the progressive shift to substantive equality, focusing on identity, dignity, and real-life impact. First, formal equality. Formal equality basically means that everyone is treated the same under the law. The law applies equally to everyone, regardless of their background or circumstance. However, the problem with formal equality is that it focuses on equal rules, not equal outcomes. So even if the rule looks fair on paper, it might still affect some groups more harshly than others. Next, substantive equality and the judicial shift. Substantive equality focuses on real fairness and actual outcomes, not just legal form. It recognizes that different groups have different circumstances, and treating everyone the same may actually create inequality. Because of this, courts have shifted their approach. They now examine the real-life effect of laws. Instead of only looking at whether the law is neutral, a law can appear equal but still be unequal if it places a heavier burden on minorities. So, how does equality protect minorities and vulnerable groups? Equality now looks at impact, not just legal form. This helps prevent laws from placing disproportionate burdens on minorities and vulnerable communities.
More importantly, equality is closely linked to identity, dignity, and personal freedom. It ensures that individuals are not forced to suppress who they are just to comply with the law. Okay, so now we're moving to case 1, Victoria Jayacil Martin versus Maib in 2013. This case involved religious identity and access to legal participation. The court acknowledged that restriction based on identity could affect a person's dignity and ability to seek justice. Here, equality was not just about being treated the same, but about ensuring meaningful access to justice. This shows how substantive equality protects individuals from being excluded due to their identity. Lastly, case 2, Muhammad Juzaili versus Negeri Sembilan in 2015. This case involved transgender women as a vulnerable minority. The law in question disproportionately affected their identity and daily lives. The court recognized that such law went beyond regulation and instead harmed dignity, autonomy, and personal freedom. This case clearly shows how substantive equality protects minorities from laws that erase their identity. In conclusion, the shift to substantive equality ensures that the law protects people not just equality but fairly by recognizing real-life impact, identity, and human dignity.
This slide focuses on Article 8, Clause 1 of the Federal Constitution, which emphasizes equality in family matters and administrative justice. Article 8, Clause 1 states that all persons are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law. This means state authorities must act fairly, consistently, and without discrimination. In terms of equality in parental rights, both the mother and the father have equal rights under the law. Family law does not prioritize one parent or the other. For example, under the Non-Muslim Family Law and the Guardianship of Infants Act, mothers are given the same legal rights as fathers in matters relating to their children's upbringing and property. However, problems arise in cases of unilateral conversion of children, where only one parent is allowed to make decisions. This practice violates Article 8, Clause 1 because it creates unequal treatment between parents and denies equal protection under the law. Therefore, allowing unilateral conversion of a child is prohibited as it goes against the principle of equality and administrative fairness guaranteed by the Constitution. Next, the case of Indira Gandhi vs. Pengarah Jait, which is an important case in understanding Article 8, Clause 1 and administrative justice. The main issue in this case was the unilateral conversion of children to Islam without the mother's consent. This started when Indira Gandhi, a Hindu mother, was married to her husband and blessed with 3 children. In 2009, his husband converted to Islam, and he then proceeded to unilaterally convert the children to Islam without the consent or knowledge of Indira Gandhi. Upon knowing that her children had been converted to Islam, Indira Gandhi filed a judicial review application in the High Court, seeking to challenge the validity of their conversion certificates. The Federal Court held that the word parent in the Constitution must be read as referring to both parents, as long as both are alive and have legal rights over the child. This interpretation is based on Article 12, Clause 4 of the Federal Constitution and reinforces the principle of equality under Article 8, Clause 1. The court also decided that the Sharia court does not have judicial power to determine constitutional matters, especially when the case involves a non-Muslim party. As a result, equal parental consent is required to ensure fairness and protection of family rights. This decision strengthens equality in administrative decision-making and prevents discriminatory actions by state authorities. In conclusion, Article 8, Clause 1 ensures equality before the law in both family matters and administrative decision-making.
In conclusion, Article 8 of the Federal Constitution plays a vital role in protecting equality before the law, ensuring equal protection and discrimination for all individuals in Malaysia. While early judicial interpretation focused on formal equality, treating similar cases in the same way, the courts have gradually moved towards a more substantive approach that considers fairness, dignity, and real-life impact. Through cases involving gender, religion, identity, and family rights, we can see how Article 8 has evolved to protect not only legal equality but also human dignity and minority rights. Although courts remain cautious, especially in religious matters, recent decisions show a growing commitment to preventing arbitrary and unfair state action. Ultimately, Article 8 remains a cornerstone of Malaysian constitutional law, ensuring that no one is above the law and that justice is applied fairly in an increasingly diverse society.